You can know a character's eye color, their blood type, their favorite ice cream flavor, but still end up with a character that acts like furniture. They take up space, but they contribute absolutely nothing to your plot. Why is this? Because bio sheets are a trap. They trick you into thinking you're writing a character when really you're just writing a list of trivia. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to burn the bio sheet and find the one thing you actually need to make your characters launch the story forward the moment they enter the room. To show you exactly how bio sheets fail, let's invite some bio sheet characters to a hypothetical party, specifically a hot dog party. Let's introduce our cast. On paper, they look amazing. First, we have Chuck. The bio says he's a washed-up ska guitarist who misses the 90s. Next, we have Janine. She's into healing crystals and wears Lululemon. And finally, Frank. He's an amateur hockey player with massive deltoids. Since we've filled out their bios, these quirky, interesting characters should create fireworks, right? But watch what happens when we put them in a scene and apply pressure. Hi everyone, I have bad news. The grocery store is rationing hot dog toppings, so you three have to agree on one topping for the whole group. Go! Now watch as these characters act the way real flesh and blood people would in a situation like this. First, what do you think about this, Chuck? Oh, bummer. Whatever you guys want is cool. I'm just vibing to the mighty, mighty boss tones. How about you, Janine? Well, I brought my own kale chips, so maybe we do ketchup, if that supports everyone's journey? How about you, Frank? Hot dog protein is literally the only thing I care about. Oh no! It's the dreaded harmonious scene. It is poison for books, and I see it all the time in the manuscripts I critique. And here's the problem. Bio sheets assume characters should be as complex as real people. But 99% of the time, real people are boring. What do real people do at hot dog parties? They make small talk. They de-escalate conflict. They avoid drama at all costs. And they certainly don't cause a kerfuffle over hot dogs. For that very reason, people are dead weight in a story. We don't want people in a scene. We want characters. Characters are not people. So if characters aren't people, what the heck are they? The answer to that question is the difference between a book that feels like a slog and a story that keeps readers up until 2 a.m. To see the role characters should play in a story, let's go back to our hot dog party. But we're going to make one tiny tweak. We'll answer the question, why do hot dog toppings matter to these characters? Suddenly, we're in a post-apocalyptic world. Citizens eat flavorless gray sludge every day, except for one day a year, hot dog party day. This is the only real food they will see all year. Now watch what happens to our polite circle when we force them to make that same topping choice. First, Chuck. We have to choose ketchup. It's the taste of the old world. It's the only thing that helps me remember my family. Janine? Are you stupid? We take the garlic aioli. It's high value. We can trade it to the castle guards and buy our way out of this hellhole. And Frank? We need sauerkraut. It's probiotics. It heals the gut. We need strength so we can kill the guards and start the revolution. Whoa! Okay, now we have a scene. So what changed? We're no longer trying to make these characters people. Instead, they are walking agendas. You see, Chuck isn't just a guy who likes ska music. Chuck is the argument for nostalgia. Janine isn't just a yoga mom. Janine is the argument for survival at any cost. And Frank isn't a hockey player. Frank is the argument for revolution. Each character is a different perspective on the big issue in the story. And when you place characters like this in a room together, they literally can't agree with each other. Robert McKee calls this polarization. If a character is in your scene and they don't have a distinct, polarized opinion on the issue, cut them out. They're furniture. And we don't need furniture in scenes. We need walking agendas. But how do you actually create characters that will work as walking agendas? All you need are flashcards. Now, the tricky thing here is you already know so much about your characters, it can be hard to see what really matters most to them. So if you want a fresh pair of eyes on this, I've opened up slots for a 30-minute story consult. We can jump on a call, stress test your story, and I'll tell you exactly which characters are pulling their weight and which ones are dead wood. You can book a time at the link in the description. But assuming you want to fix this yourself right now, how do we strip away that dead weight and turn your characters into conflict machines? So if the character bio is a dead end, how do you make characters with this kind of electricity? Well, you build your characters based on issues. Here's how you do it. Take an index card and write down the big controversial issue in your world. The thing that would be the newspaper headline every day. The thing everybody has an opinion on. For example, let's say you're writing a world inhabited by jelly-like slugs. And the issue is that the military faction of the government has developed a giant flying salt shaker to take over the world. So we've got an issue, and next we're going to brainstorm possible perspectives on the issue. Take more index cards. On each one, write a distinct opinion some character might have about your story's big issue. In our jelly slug situation, what kind of stances could these slugs have on the salt shaker superweapon? They could think the salt shaker superweapon is good. They can think it's bad. They can think it's irrelevant compared to the awe-inspiring mercy of Glorb. Heck, they can even become romantically entangled with the salt shaker superweapon. There are endless opinions, and each opinion could likewise blossom into a whole faction of characters with their own nuanced reasons for believing what they believe. And the magic comes when you make this single perspective your character's whole deal. Get this right, and you can sit back with a bag of popcorn and watch your characters automatically tear at each other's throats as soon as they're in the same room. So you now have these perspectives on index cards, but this creates a new problem. How do you turn an opinion into a living, breathing character? Well, this is the exact moment where the character bio actually becomes useful. But contrary to the way most people do it, we're going to flesh out our characters backwards. Here's what we do. Take our slug story. The first perspective we had was that the salt shaker superweapon is good. Now we're going to create a character backstory that would justify that kind of perspective. Why would a slug want a salt shaker superweapon? Don't be lazy here. It's not just because, well, I'm a villain. That's not interesting. Character roles are not a good justification. Backstory is. Even villains should have a reason for their actions that makes logical sense. So maybe this salt shaker superweapon is good because the Republic has been weak and ineffectual. This character's backstory could be back when the evil slug general was just a cadet. The Republic did nothing to punish the slug pirates who raided the slug cadet's village and killed his fiancée. And from that point, he vowed that he would establish a new world that was no longer governed by weak politicians. How about our second perspective? Why would someone think the salt shaker superweapon is bad? Invent a plausible backstory out of thin air. Maybe the military burned down this character's lettuce farm to build an airstrip. So the character knows that even if this new government takes over, the people won't be served, like the evil general says. And let's do a third perspective. Why would someone not care about the salt shaker superweapon? Well, maybe this character grew up on the streets, where the only person who looked out for him was him. He learned that causes get you killed, but profit keeps you fed. So he becomes a slug pirate. Most of us do this process exactly backwards. We get held back by all the backstory we've already created for our characters. Don't ever be shackled by backstory. Backstory and lore should always serve the story logic, not the other way around. Create backstory out of thin air and tweak it however you need to justify the perspective. Why is Slug Pirate so selfish? Who cares? Just make something that is logically coherent that will make the reader say, oh yeah, if that happened to me, I'd become a pirate too. This process makes electric characters. They are relevant because when they enter a scene, they'll always provide much needed drama. And this is absolutely how your favorite story characters function. They're all walking agendas. Now, briefly, not all writers write the same way. Some writers don't start with a big controversial idea. They start with a character. This flashcard method works fine if you start with characters too. If this is you, instead of making the big plot issue your central point, start with one character's core belief. For example, I am only worthy of love if I'm helpful. And from here, the goal of your other flashcards is to come up with perspectives that will demolish that character's belief, so that a more wholesome belief can eventually take its place. So one belief that can challenge I'm only worthy of love if I'm helpful is the belief that love is a lie. Another belief could be help is for the weak. And this will bring energy to your scenes. Each character should contribute to your main character's journey through some kind of conflicting belief. So don't start with trivial character details. Instead, work backwards, starting with perspectives. If you do that, your characters will be conflict engines that generate drama automatically. But even a turbo engine Lamborghini needs a track to run on. So to take these characters and slot them into a plot that is guaranteed to keep readers hooked all the way to the end, watch this video next.